Good morning everyone and welcome to the Cabinet meeting. I'm Councillor Amanda Hopgood, Leader of Durham County Council and Chair for this meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on our YouTube channel. Before we can commence with today's formal business, I'd like to cover some of the housekeeping issues for us to follow. So if we could please switch off or make silent mobile phones and keep microphones switched off at all times unless invited to speak by myself as Chair. When invited to speak on the microphone, can you please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself the first time you speak? Thank you. So we move on to the agenda. Item 1 is public questions. We haven't received any questions for this part of today's meeting. Item 2, can I have a mover of the minutes of the meeting on the 18th of May, please?
Councillor Mark Wilkes, move the minutes.
Thanks. And a seconder, please?
Councillor Paul Sexton, seconded.
Thanks. Can we agree the minutes are a correct record? Thank you. I can confirm, therefore, that the minutes are agreed. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from members, please? No? Okay. Item 4, Climate Emergency Response Plan 2022 to 24. If I can ask Oliver Sherratt, Head of Environment, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on progress against the Council's first Climate Emergency Response Plan, or SERP, approved by Cabinet in February 2020, and also presents for approval a new and revised SERP 2 to cover the period 2022 to 2024. The first SERP was a costed two-year plan which set out a range of projects and activities that would take the Council towards achieving the target of reducing the Council's CO2 emissions by 80% by the year 2030, along with a county-wide target of being completely carbon neutral by 2050. Progress, as you can see in the report, over the 2 years since the adoption of the SERP has been substantial, with an actual reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from the Council by 58% recorded at the end of 2020-21. The report highlights a number of individual projects of note, including the successful decarbonisation scheme at the Abbey Leisure Centre, the Morrison Busty Carbon Depot project, which is underway at Anfield Plain, and the replacement of an oil heating system at Woodland School in Teesdale with a combination of air source heat pumps and solar power, an exceptional example of what can be achieved in a small rural setting. The data presented for county-wide emissions offers 54% reduction, and that relates to 2019-20, which is the most recent data available. Again, the report also covers considerable work that is going on across the county to support wider decarbonisation, including significant projects around electric vehicle charging, working with landlords to improve energy efficiency of buildings, providing advice and guidance to businesses through the BEEP project, and support for nature-based solutions across the county, including peatland restoration and tree planting. The SERP is a collective one and not just for the Council. And as an example of this, in 2021, whilst the Glasgow International COP26 was underway, we convened our own local meeting of partners with over 40 organisations from the public, private and third sectors signing an agreement to work together across Durham to tackle climate change. Chair, also presented in this report today is the successor to the SERP, the first SERP, i.e. the SERP 2, and that builds on the success of the original plan, but also presents a wider strategy and context for our climate actions. This revised plan considers 10 thematic areas within 4 overarching principles, which are a fair and just transition, achieving a green recovery, being community and people-centred, and applying nature-based solutions. Each of the 10 chapters in this revised response plan sets out details of actions that the Council and partners will take in pursuit of our climate ambitions. It includes 127 climate change actions, ranging from heat decarbonisation of our own buildings through to reducing emissions on fleet, to local area energy planning and nature-based solutions. Each chapter contains an ask of government, recognising the importance of working towards shared goals, often expressed in national strategies. A number of the initiatives set out in this SERP 2 are already built into our financial planning, including over £3 million for recently announced schemes within the last MTFP. We are, of course, reliant on a reasonable expectation of external funding to support a number of projects. Alongside the increased ambition of these projects, in this revised emergency response plan, there is also an important stepping up of our emissions targets to include carbon neutrality for our council operations by 2030 and for the county as a whole by 2045. These new targets will sit alongside the existing target of an 80% reduction in actual emissions by 2030 and include within its scope a variety of measures we are already underway with, such as planting of over 44,000 trees in this last year alone, as well as anticipating future advances in technology. Chair, tackling climate change is one of the major challenges of our time, with the benefits not being restricted to environment, but also extending to issues such as fuel poverty, public health, and fostering a green economy. And the SERP will be instrumental in delivering on a range of outcomes. The full set of recommendations are set out in paragraph 11 and include noting the progress against the first SERP, formal adoption of a revised plan, a SERP 2, with more ambitious targets, and a note about the resources which will require our partners to play their part too. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Oliver. Can I invite Councillor Mark Wilkes, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Oliver. There's been a huge amount of work done to get us to where we are today with this report. And it's a really important report, Chair, and it's a milestone report for this Council. It's a great source of pride to me to be the first member of this Council's Cabinet to have a specific portfolio for climate change and be the Council's climate champion. It's also a source of pride to me that this Council remains at the forefront of work nationally in this area and that our Council is recognised as such. In addition, we've embedded the importance of this issue into our structures, not only through my portfolio, but also by having a corporate director dedicated to the issue of climate change, who leads a team of dedicated and passionate professionals. And I'd like to thank those officers for bringing this innovative and forward-thinking report into reality and making the improvements that we as a joint administration wanted to upgrade our plans. The second edition of our Climate Emergency Response Plan has never been more important than it is today. The science of climate change is now established and the world is working together to find solutions, spearheaded by the actions of the United Nations. County Durham will play its part because we must, and because it is clear that the issues we are dealing with are not only at a global scale, they are also local and they are with us now. Issues around how we supply and use our energy are a prime example. The cost of living crisis is being driven by energy costs, and we must plan to act local and protect our communities where we can. Extreme weather events such as Storm Arwen are a glimpse of how we need to adapt our systems and our infrastructure to cope with climate change at a local level. And it's worth noting that a community centre powered by solar panels kept the lights on for one community during those difficult days at the end of last year, while many relying on the grid could not. Chair, this plan is extensive and comprehensive, 10 priority areas that we must address to mitigate the impact of climate change that we will have on our lives and our communities. Within each one, there's a costed action plan bringing forward technical, environmental, community and nature-based solutions. Importantly, as Oliver has said, each section also includes an ask of government. Government has provided a strategic direction in the area of climate change, backed by international commitments from events like COP25, and it must now follow this up with funding and legislative backing so that we can all deliver on our ambitions. This revised plan gives us the opportunity to make a clear and unambiguous statement about this Council's high ambitions for carbon reduction. We have taken that opportunity by once again increasing the target that we set ourselves and clearly stating that this Council is now aiming to be carbon neutral in our own activities by 2030. And we have put forward a plan to get us there. We're also setting our ambition for the county to be carbon neutral by 2045, 5 years ahead of the national target, but achievable with the right help from government. And it's also important to add, Chair, that tackling fuel poverty, improving our energy infrastructure and improving biodiversity are key parts of our plans and are embedded within the areas we are targeting. Finally, I think it's important that we recognise our commitment to cutting carbon emissions. This Council has secured and committed more funding to tackle climate change in 1 year than in the entire 13 years the Council was previously running. And a critical reason for doing this is that it will also help us to cut our costs and protect frontline services. In other parts of the country, things like swimming pools are being shut down because of how much they cost to run. We are investing to ensure that these kinds of facilities are far more efficient, saving money on running costs. And this extends to our activities such as replacing more vehicles in 1 year with electric ones than in all previous years, installing solar panels and battery banks to ensure that we are reducing the cost of our energy usage and becoming more energy independent. Being green is now essential to our finances, essential for our security, essential for our environment, and a critical priority for the joint administration running Durham County Council. Chair, I'm delighted to move this report.
Thanks, Mark. Can I invite Councillor Susan MacDonald, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Digital Customer Service and Procurement, to speak to the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second the sentiments from Councillor Wilkes about the importance of this report. This is a landmark report in the history of this Council, which sets out clear, stretching but achievable targets over a decade which has already been dubbed the critical decade for the work we all need to do to limit global temperature rises. I also echo the emphasis on the local issues which are set out in this plan, as they too are critical to our success. The concept of a fair and just transition, ensuring that no community is left behind in the move towards low carbon technology, is so important if we are to make significant and long-lasting changes. This is not only reflected in our strategy and planning, but is also being put into practice with initiatives such as external wall insulation, business energy efficiency schemes and help to community organisations for low carbon initiatives. Decarbonising our own buildings and operations is essential, and the plan we have here is both thorough and comprehensive, but we also need to bring our communities along with us. We know that the vast majority of people are increasingly aware of the impact that their activities are having on the planet, and they're looking for ways to improve this. This revised plan sets out clearly how Durham County Council will play our part. Chair, I'm happy to second the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the report, please? Yeah, Councillor Shuttleworth.
Yeah, just briefly, Chairman. As we know, climate change brings with us more extreme and disruptive weather, such as Storm Arwen, and in the last few years we've had flood events and the beast from the east. It's vital that we work with partners, we ensure that we have the infrastructure to contend and mitigate this, and that most importantly we do all we can to support our communities and give them tools to cope. I'm pleased that the SERP is community focused in its approach, has an adoption to severe weather as one of its action themes, and I look forward to this being further built on as working with partners we embrace any lessons learned from Storm Arwen that have already been subject to recent national reports, as in last week, with our local feedback on this issue to be reported to Cabinet next month. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Yeah, Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chair. I echo Councillor Shuttleworth's sentiments on the importance of resilience of the electricity network and a robust and reliable power supply at all times. As you'd expect, I have a view on costs of the programme. In paragraph 30, the 127 climate change related actions across the SERP2 period are estimated to be over £121 million, and as we note at paragraph 8, we will require external funding and also advances in technology in some areas to be able to fully meet these costs. This could be direct government funding in terms of grant assistance for energy efficiency, Insulation, we have a very aged housing stock in County Durham, we have a very aged schools estate, and it's a significant challenge to bring that up to date. Also issues like VAT and exemptions on energy efficiency measures would be very useful indeed. So there are, I think, a number of asks from central government, principally working with the electricity companies, the power grids, to ensure a robust and reliable supply that is also capable of delivering the electricity that is needed in local areas, and secondly, giving a financial framework that encourages both bodies such as the Council and indeed private investment to make the investments necessary to achieve these goals. Fully support the report, Chair.
Thanks, Richard. Does anyone else wishes to speak? Cabinet? No? Can we agree the report and its recommendations? Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. We'll move on to item 5, the Levelling Up Fund Round 2. If I can ask Jeff Paul, Interim Corporate Director of Regeneration, Economy and Growth, to present the report, please.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for the submission of 5 Levelling Up Fund bids for 5 constituencies across the county. The report outlines each submission for the constituencies for rounds 2 and identifies the overall financial package that would sit with those propositions. And that package is a ask of £92 million for Levelling Up Fund grant, £21 million match from Durham County Council and £4 million private match, giving a total spend of £117 million should all 5 bids be successful. Chair, the report covers the history of Levelling Up, and in the 2021 budget, central government announced the Levelling Up Fund programme and issued a call for round 1 of projects which allowed every constituency in the country to put a bid in up to £20 million, and it focused on three areas. Those 3 areas were transport related, town centre regeneration and cultural investment, and all of the investment is in the main capital investment. The report identifies that Durham has been identified as one of the areas of greatest need in the country, and it's been classified as a Tier 1 authority, and that should allow us to have some form of preference as and when bids are assessed by government. In fact, last year we submitted a bid in round 1 for the Bishop Auckland Parliamentary constituency and were successful in securing £20 million levelling up funding for an overall £30 million package of projects. The Levelling Up Fund is a competitive fund, and government announced last year that it had allocated £4.8 billion nationally. However, in round 1 it allocated £1.7 billion, so the amount that is left to support the programme is £3.1 billion. County Durham has 6 parliamentary constituencies, and last June Cabinet agreed that we should commit to develop a further 5 bids across the remaining constituencies. And in February this year, as part of the budget process, Council agreed that we would allocate £10 million to support match to go with the bids. Initially that £5 million was put in the budget, but there's a further £5 million in the event of all bids being successful. Chair, the deadline for submission of round 2 proposals is the 6th of July, and capital spend is required to be completed by March 2025. It's also a requirement that should we have schemes which are successful, and we expect announcements in the autumn statement in 2022, that there is an expectation that there will be some spend during the current financial year. Although government announced there would be 3 bidding rounds when it announced round 1 last year, the most recent Levelling Up white paper and subsequent guidance on round 2 just talks about the second round. So we are making a working assumption that there will be no round 3 and that all of our remaining 5 bids will go into round 2. Chair, the process is supported by a significant amount of stakeholder and political engagement. We have, across all of the 5 constituencies, undertaken significant consultation with local members, regular meetings with members of Parliament, and we've also undertaken significant consultation on various master plans that support proposals in various constituencies. Those master plans have led to more than 1,748 responses being received, and they will help inform the individual submissions to government on the 5th of July. The report goes into some detail on all of the constituencies and the schemes that sit within the individual constituencies. And Chair, all 5 constituencies represent or will show good benefits in relation to the outcomes that the government is looking for under the Levelling Up Fund criteria. All 5 constituency proposals have also have the approval and support of the individual members of Parliament. Chair, moving quickly to the individual constituencies in Durham City, we propose making a bid for £20 million of Levelling Up funding to contribute to the delivery of 3 major schemes that will collectively enhance and maintain Durham City's economy through transport and cultural-led regeneration. The 3 schemes are firstly the development of a relief road at Boburn, city centre cultural attraction connectivity along the riverbanks with DLI, Walton Park, Crook Hall, Elvert Park and the Peninsula, and finally the works to ensure the stabilisation of the A690. The breakdown for the financial ask in relation to those schemes is in paragraph 51 of the report. In the Easington constituency, again we are seeking the maximum £20 million Levelling Up Fund grant, and it's been sought to contribute to the delivery of 3 schemes that will support well-being and quality of life improvements as part of the longer-term approach to housing-led regeneration of Hordern and the Hordern-numbered streets. The 3 schemes of investment are enabled residential land to provide opportunities for social housing and the ability to rehouse residents from existing homes to facilitate longer-term demolition and regeneration. 2 sites are under construction in that regard. We're also looking at community assets on brownfield land to include woodland plantation, a nature reserve and a new community building to provide flexible space and gardens and linking active mode routes. The final scheme is to improve local streets to enhance cycle, active mode and environment with landscaping and trees. The breakdown for the financial ask on Easington is in paragraph 56. Chair, in terms of North Durham, again £20 million is sought from Levelling Up Fund, and there are 3 schemes in this proposition. The first is High Street Generation, and we're looking to bring back buildings into life within the town centre through the introduction of new managed workspace, public space, enhancement of the wellbeing offer at the Louisa Centre and the bus station revitalisation. The second project is decongestion improvements along the A693, including at the Asda roundabout and Ox Hill Junction, and also allowing for improved public transport journey times and punctuality. The third proposes active travel measures to link North Durham Academy and the High Street with residential areas and to better connect the town to the coast-to-coast cycle route. The breakdown of the financial ask is in paragraph 61. Turning to North West Durham, we are seeking we're seeking an allocation of Levelling Up Fund of £12 million. It's been sought for schemes across the 3 towns of Willington, Crook and Towlaw. The first envisages a range of improvements across the towns, including a new community hub, improved parks, multi-use games areas, event spaces and a BMX track and skate park. The second involves creating enabling infrastructure to support development at Low Willington Industrial Estate, target improvement for the town's high streets, measures to help people know where they're going, and creation of public space. The third scheme proposes new and upgraded cycling and walking routes within and between the 3 settlements, and new electric vehicle charging infrastructure to support and encourage sustainable travel. The breakdown of the financial ask for North West Durham is at 75. Turning lastly to Sedgefield, we are seeking a maximum £20 million for Levelling Up Fund grant, and it's for the regeneration of Newton Aycliffe. The The first scheme proposes repurposing land and buildings within the town centre to provide enhanced flexible amenity space, a public transport interchange, reprovision of service level car parking and enhanced commercial buildings. Scheme 2 involves enhancement of active travel routes across the town, linking employment locations, the town's train station, green spaces, parks and residential areas. The third scheme proposes enhancing the cultural and wellbeing offer within the town centre and providing a cultural family attraction alongside existing leisure and library services. Paragraph 75 has the breakdown for the Sedgefield constituency finances. The financial ask, Chair, across all the proposals is set out in table 32 and shows that breakdown that I mentioned at the beginning of this introduction. The timescales are tight to finalise the 5 bid submissions, and they require full Treasury Green Book business cases, and to do that in advance of the 6th of July is a real challenge. However, we're working hard to develop good quality business cases for the funding submission. The work process includes securing land agreements, confirming stakeholder support, reviewing viability of proposals and finalising legal subsidy control advice to enhance the submissions. The recommendations, Chair, set out in paragraph 35 in the report, and they do include the request for delegated authority to continue work on the propositions right up to the final submission date prior to the deadline.
Right, thanks, Jeff. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Economy and Partnerships, to speak to the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Levelling Up is the flagship policy of the Government, and the opportunity for the County of Durham to benefit from the Levelling Up Fund and other opportunities is something that the administration is keen to benefit from. There are many economic indicators that show that the North East in general, and Durham in particular, are in need of support and intervention to grow a better economy and provide opportunities for residents to benefit from the new and better jobs that will be created. Gross value added in the county is approximately 9 billion a year. This is a good indicator of relative prosperity and productivity. If our average per capita GVA was at the same as the national average, then our annual GVA would be over 12 billion per year. There is much to do. Cabinet has previously agreed to develop an inclusive economic strategy, and this will be considered in the autumn. What is clear from the work to date is that residents, businesses, councillors and young people have engaged in a comprehensive conversation about what is needed to build a sustainable and inclusive economy. This information, together with the Government's Levelling Up policy, will be central to the Council's strategic thinking going forward. Members will recall our success in securing investment in round 1 of the Levelling Up Fund, and I would like to support the opportunity to secure a further 92 million from the Levelling Up Fund for 5 schemes across the county. As a council, we are committed to investing in regeneration across our communities and supporting an inclusive economy. These proposals, drawn upon our local priorities, and provide an opportunity to deliver more than 117 million right across the county to support transport connectivity, cultural development and regeneration in our cities, town centres and villages. Durham County Council's commitment is demonstrated by the significant match funding of 21 million that we will make should all 5 submissions be successful. The schemes will help to support employment growth by enabling employment land, regenerate and revive our towns and villages, enhance the visitor economy and our cultural attractions within the city, support the well-being of our residents through enhanced services and new community facilities, providing more infrastructure that will support walking, cycling and the green economy. This investment can provide a catalyst for change, helping our most deprived communities to level up and attract further external investment. I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 35 of the report.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Richard Bell, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance, to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank all the staff and members who have been tasked with developing detailed business cases for each of the 5 constituencies. This has and continues to be a significant effort and very challenging, but I'm confident that our submissions on the 6th of July will give us the best chances of success. Our first submission for levelling up for Bishop Auckland constituency last year was successful and resulted in £20 million being awarded to repair Walton Bridge, create a bypass for Toft Hill, which had been requested for decades, and make major improvements to the Locomotion Museum at Shildon and walking and cycling routes in that area. Our bid last year was commended by the Department for Levelling Up and Communities as good practice in terms of bid writing, and therefore I very much hope that we will have successful outcomes for these bid submissions so that we can deliver real benefits for our residents and communities across the county. I therefore, Chair, second the proposal to agree these 5 Levelling Up Fund bid submissions and wish them every success. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this? Yeah, Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Chair. When we took over last year and we had almost 1 bid ready, I'd have never have thought that we'd have got to where we are today. I think it's a testament to the hard work of the portfolio holders who've been working on this, and more importantly, the immense amount of work that our officers have been doing. I don't think there's going to be another council in this country submitting 6 bids. We've already got 1 of this quality, and I'm truly staggered at just how much our officers have managed to achieve over the last 12 months. Anybody who thinks this is just about putting a few words on a piece of paper, if they were to see what actually goes into these bids and the amount of detail, I think they'd be quite staggered. In terms of Durham City, where I'm a councillor, I was quite amazed to discover that we've got our main road, A690, on the verge of potentially collapsing. And getting this bid in there to address an issue which should have been addressed by the previous administration is critical. Being able to secure more jobs out in Bowburn will have a massive impact for that part of the county and the wider area. But for me, the part of the Durham City bid that I really look forward to seeing being brought forward by the portfolio holder and officers is starting to turn around our city. We have a World Heritage City which has underperformed for decades, that so many of our residents feel things have been done which were simply wrong. And I think we're now in a position with the joint administration looking and getting on with improving this county, improving our city for the better for everyone. And I really got my fingers and toes crossed that we get all these bids over the line, because this county is amazing and we need to make it even better.
Thanks, Mark. Is there anyone else wishes to speak? So can we agree the report and its recommendations, please? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 6, County Durham Partnership Update. If I can ask Oliver Sherratt, Head of Environment, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This comprehensive report is the regular update on activities of the County Durham Partnership. It follows a familiar structure, with the first part providing an update on key issues that the County Durham Partnership has been dealing with at the present time. And then the second part of it goes in to describe the work of the various partnership boards in support of the County Durham Vision 2035. The report throughout is illustrated by projects and initiatives supported through area action partnerships and voluntary organisations across the county. So for the first part of the report, it really sort of reports back that the County Durham Partnership Board has met twice in the reporting period, covering issues such as the City of Culture bid and the Armed Forces Covenant. And at the March meeting, the board resolved that the standing agenda item related to the response to COVID-19 should be brought to a close with an update on how a transition to living with COVID is being dealt with. The March meeting also saw a series of regular updates from the thematic chairs to allow the board to focus on specific key areas of work across the partnership. The first of those was from the Health and Wellbeing Board on the integrated care system. The report references the UK City of Culture bid for 2025, where County Durham's bid got through, as we know, to the last 4 bidders. And although we know the bid was not selected for City of Culture title, the experience has built partnerships across the cultural sector and across the county that will provide many benefits in the future. The review of community engagement within the council is now underway, with an external specialist soon to be appointed. The report notes that the AAPs have now supported 10,000 projects, with that milestone having been reached earlier in the year. The AAP boards have consulted through the AAP priority survey on what the local priorities should be, and community recovery following the pandemic came as one of those key priorities as an outcome of this. The holiday activities with the Healthy Food Programme remains a priority across the county, with £2.3 million worth of funding be allocated to County Durham, which has been supplemented by further funds from the Durham County Council to provide support through the half-term holidays. The extensive work going on in the area of humanitarian support is highlighted in the report, as is the work of the Advice in County Durham Partnership to provide joined-up advice and support in the face of cost of living challenges. The second part of the report commences on paragraph 52 onwards and covers work towards the Vision 2035, covering the key themes of more and better jobs, people living long and independent lives, and connected communities. In terms of the more and better jobs, the report highlights the work of the Economic Partnership on the e-conversation consultation exercise, an update on the Towns and Villages programme, joint working with the Environment and Climate Change Partnership on green recovery, and the role of the partnership in developing a local investment plan for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. For long and independent lives, the report refers to the work of the Health and Wellbeing Board and the VCS Better Together Forum in progressing the integrated care agenda. There's reference to partnership working on smoking cessation agenda and also the Ageing Well Health Needs Assessment, which is currently being undertaken. Again, this section of the report is illustrated by a range of projects supported by area action partnerships around the county. And the Connected Communities theme highlights the work of the Community Safety Partnership on the antisocial behaviour agenda, where a strategic group has been established to provide leadership and develop further the antisocial behaviour strategy. The report also highlights counter-terrorism activities that the partnership continues to be active in and continues to attract national interest for a best practice in partnership working. Under this same theme, the work of the Environment and the Climate Change Partnership on both the Climate Emergency Response Plan that we've heard about earlier today and the Local Nature Recovery Strategy is highlighted in the report, as well as a number of projects on the subject of food designed to reduce food waste while also providing affordable food services to those in need. Finally, there's reference to progress on the North East Community Forest and some early work on a project to generate renewable heat from mine water in Hordern. Cabinet is recommended to note the contents of this comprehensive report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Oliver. As Chair of the County Durham Partnership, it's always pleasing to see this report, which pulls together in one place the work of our partnerships across the county. Our partnership boards continue to deal effectively with a range of strategic issues affecting the county, some of which will affect the way public services operate for years to come. The work of the Economic Partnership to develop an inclusive economic strategy, including the innovative consultation process called the e-conversation, is bringing in new voices to this important work, including those of young people whose contribution is essential as we prepare our county for the future. The Environment and Climate Change Partnership are finding new ways to bring together ecology, climate science and landscape management in the delivery of our local nature recovery strategy alongside our climate emergency response plan. The Health and Wellbeing Board is contributing to the wider work, progressing regionally for the integrated care system, as well as addressing those pressing natures that result in health inequalities, such as smoking and nutrition. This, of course, is not an extensive list, but some highlights of the work underway. To me, there has been no greater recent demonstration of the power of partnership working than our City of Culture bid. Whilst not taking the title, it took us to the final four, which we should all be immensely proud of. The bid has brought together organisations, communities and individuals, not just from the cultural sector, but from all walks of life and all parts of the county and the wider region, to showcase our county on the biggest national stage, showing the world just what we have to offer. It has truly been an exciting whirlwind of an experience, and the benefits to County Durham will be long-lasting. Finally, I'd like to mention the works that our partnerships continue to play in the vital humanitarian support work across the county. The war in Ukraine and the continuing conflicts in Afghanistan, Syria and elsewhere create waves around the world, and we are working with our communities and residents, along with central government, to play our part in providing a place of safety for those fleeing life-threatening situations. This report is full of important and inspiring projects, large and small, and I would recommend that everyone should read it to see the extent of the work that's taken place across the county. This report is for noting, but I'm quite happy if anyone else wishes to speak. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, on this report, I would echo your comments on the extensive nature of the partnership working in this county and the inspiring nature of many of the initiatives that come out of this, both large and small. In addition to your comments, I'd just like to highlight three issues. The first is our review of community engagement, which is making good progress and will be on the agenda at the upcoming Partnership Forum meeting on Friday. This report highlights the value of good partnership working and good community engagement, and our review seeks to strengthen this by ensuring that our structures and mechanisms are fit for purpose in 2022 and for the future. We're in a very different time now than we were back in 2013, and we need to reflect that in a positive and supportive way. The review will be inclusive and wide-ranging, and our specialist advisors will be engaging with partners and stakeholders over the rest of the summer and into the autumn. I would also like to highlight the important work that many of our partnerships are doing to support our communities through the increasing cost of living crisis. This is happening both strategically through our Advice in County Durham Partnership, for example, but also on a very local scale with the continuation of the Holiday Activities with Food programme, among others, helping those most in need through the school holidays in this uncertain and difficult time. Finally, from me, I'd like to highlight the central role of our economic partnership in the preparation of the local investment plan, which is a central feature of the work around the UK Prosperity Fund. This important work will help place us in the best possible position to take advantage of the fund, and in turn is a testament to the strength of our partnership working in this area. Chair, this report is a thorough and fascinating read, and I echo your remarks that it should be read and communicated widely.
Thank you. Does anyone else wishes to speak on the report? Okay. Can we note the content of the report, please?
Agreed.
Okay, I can confirm that the report is noted. Item 7, Quarter 4, 2021-22 Performance Management Report. If I can ask Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report, please.
Morning, thank you, Chair. This report sets out details of our performance against the targets and actions set out in the corporate plan. It's the year-end report setting out the position to the 31st of March. The report includes some contextual information with regards to our performance and still includes details from the COVID-19 surveillance dashboard, alongside some additional information with regards to the increase in cost of living, which is having an impact on the council, our businesses, residents and on local communities. The performance report is attached to Appendix 2 and is structured around the council's ambitions and desired outcomes of more and better jobs, covered in paragraphs 1 to 65 of the appendix, long and independent lives, in section 66 to 117, Connected Communities 118 to 184, and an Excellent Council, which is covered from sections 185 to 268. Within each of the ambitions, there is commentary on state of the county issues of significance, which are linked to the achievement of the county vision, aims and objectives, and to which the council has a role, but not overall ownership in terms of delivery. Council-specific initiatives and actions are linked to the council plan are also covered within each section. Attached to the report is a comprehensive list of performance indicator data, and the key headlines are set out in the cover report and executive summary, with the detailed performance dashboards and performance narratives set out at Appendix 2. I would, however, draw the Cabinet's attention to a few issues from the executive summary. Under the More and Better Jobs theme, members will see that the unemployment rate within the county is reduced, and based on the latest published data, unemployment in County Durham has fallen to 4.1%, which represents the 12th successive month unemployment has fallen, and unemployment is now at a lower level than pre-pandemic. There are, however, increasing difficulties in the market in terms of recruitment, with nationally more vacancies being available than there are unemployed people in the UK at this time. Mirroring the improvement in the employment rate, there's been a further reduction in the universal credit claimant count across the county in the quarter, with the claimant count being in line with pre-pandemic levels now, which is in contrast to the England and North East averages, which still remain above pre-pandemic levels. That said, we are still seeing increased demand for welfare assistance and discretionary housing payments, suggesting that there are issues with in-work poverty as a result of many people in work being in low-paid work. The report again highlights some of the wide disparities in terms of unemployment rates across the county. Turning to schools, there were 22 schools in the county inspected by Ofsted during the quarter. 7 of these now have a good or outstanding rating, an increase of 6. And the remaining 5 schools were judged as either requires improvement to be good or is classified as inadequate, a net reduction of 2 schools. In the last 12 months, there's been a 10% increase in contacts to the Housing Solutions Service, mainly due to an increase in presentations earlier in the year as a result of the eviction ban being lifted and eviction numbers returning to pre-pandemic levels, private sector properties becoming less sustainable, and more recently fuel poverty issues impacting on that sector. Whilst the numbers remain low, we are seeing an increase in the number of rough sleepers, as well as these cases becoming more complex to deal with. Throughout the year, the number of new households in temporary accommodation and the average length of time placed in temporary accommodation have reduced by 11% and 1.5 days respectively when compared to the previous year. In terms of the long and independent lives theme, the impact of the pandemic on mental health of the population is highlighted as a concern, with increase in hospital admission rates for intentional self-harm, particularly in the 10 to 24-year-old age bracket, being a major concern, and there's been increases in the admission rates for alcohol-specific conditions also identified within the same period. There has been a new campaign, Now You're Talking, launched to help develop and encourage people to talk more about their mental health. There is a continuing reduction in permanent admissions to residential and nursing care, with admission rates reducing by about 33% since the start of the pandemic, but on the converse, there's been a significant increase in demand for home care. There are competing operational pressures at the moment that continue to impact negatively on service users being reviewed within 12 months. This activity has been impacted by the pandemic, and 65% of service users have received an assessment within the last 12 months, compared to almost 90% in the previous year. The service has recruited additional resources, have been aligned to this, and mitigating actions have been put in place to hopefully address this over the coming months. More positively, the proportion of older people who are still at home 91 days after discharge from hospital into reablement or rehabilitation services continue to increase, and the latest position at almost 89% is the highest performance for 4 years. The pandemic has made it more difficult, as members will be aware, for people to participate in sport and activity, and despite a steady increase throughout the year, in 21-22, visitors to our leisure centres were below target by around 33%. In terms of connected communities, household waste tonnages being collected have stabilised, albeit at a higher level than pre-pandemic, with waste tonnages collected last year broadly being in line with the previous year when we saw a significant increase. There remains continuing challenges in terms of contamination of recycling bins, with 33% of bins being contaminated compared to 29% pre-pandemic. However, the latest data does show a 2 percentage point improvement on the previous quarter. Overall, crime levels remain low. However, recorded crime has increased by 6%. Increases have been seen across all crime categories except violence against a person, and all these increases are due to comparatively low levels of recorded crime for the previous year, as we were in the various lockdowns and opportunities for committing crime were more limited. There's been a 7% decrease in antisocial behaviour incidents across the last 12 months. However, personal antisocial behaviour incidents are still 5% higher than pre-pandemic levels, with nuisance antisocial behaviour incidents, particularly linked to noise, quad bikes, etc., 10% higher than pre-pandemic levels. The report does highlight that during the quarter, County Durham was awarded £33.6 million from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and this includes £2.8 million of multiply funding to help improve numeracy and math skills. In Durham City, construction of the new Durham bus station continues, with the new facility expected to be operational from July 23, and the council does continue to progress schemes to deliver high quality housing and drive up housing standards within the social and private rented sectors. 64 of the 67 constructed chapter homes properties located at Oakerside Drive in Peterlee have now been sold, and construction of 60 new homes at Gilesgate is on track. And phase 1 of the council house building programme, which will see 155 properties built across 7 sites, continues, with financial viability assessments being undertaken at this time. Demand for children's social care and the complexity of cases continues to be an issue and place significant pressure on both the council's social care teams and on the council's budget. Caseloads have consistently been around 3,800 to 3,900, but encouragingly referrals and referral rates are lower than pre-pandemic levels. Finally, Chair, under the excellent counselling theme, I would identify that the net COVID-related expenditure last year was £3.7 million less than the funding we received, which has contributed to an improved outturn position. During quarter 4, there was a lifting of the restrictions, and the council office-based staff started to return to the offices from the 28th of February. We do face some challenges in terms of our staff turnover rate, which has increased to 9% and is above the pre-pandemic levels of 7.2%. And recruitment is, as I said earlier, proven to be challenging across a range of jobs. Towards the year end, we did launch our 22 campaign in terms of recruiting new apprentices, with 97 opportunities currently being recruited to. More concerning though is the fact that our sickness absence rate has increased, with average sickness absence per FTE increasing to around 11.6 days. But if we exclude the COVID-related absences, the average figure is 10.3 days, and we are, as a corporate management team, looking at the underlying issues around that particular issue. PDRs have been continued to be rolled out across the quarter, and by the end of March, 83% of all managers' PDRs have been completed. Finally, Chair, in terms of customer contact, this does remain higher than pre-pandemic levels. Service requests are up by around 28% compared to pre-pandemic, but we have seen an increase in online transactions, with more CRM accounts being set up. There were around 2,500 corporate complaints last year, which is broadly in line with the previous year. Chair, finally, the report does highlight some of the challenging issues linked to poverty and the impact of the cost of living crisis. The report identifies that 16% of households across the county currently experience fuel poverty, and this is expected to increase, with energy bills increasing by at least 50% following the removal of the energy price cap. The impact of the national insurance contribution increases and other general inflation pressures placing a squeeze on household incomes. People in rural areas and those already struggling are being disproportionately affected by those issues, and we've seen increased demand for our welfare assistance and other crisis support on the back of those issues. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 8, which are for Cabinet to note the report and the performance issues highlighted.
Thanks, Paul. And can I thank Paul and his team for a comprehensive summary of our performance during the last quarter of 21-22. You'll be pleased to know that I'm able to reduce what I'm going to say because Paul's covered quite a lot of it in his report, so thank you. Across the quarter, inflation continued to rise steeply, and there was an increasing squeeze on households and businesses as energy price inflation and the cost of fuel in particular soared, with the situation made much worse by the dreadful situation that we see unveiling in Ukraine. In April, the National Insurance tax rise came into effect and the price cap on energy was lifted, with further increase expected in October. Most commentators are forecasting that inflation will exceed 10% over the coming months, levels which we have not seen for over 20 years. Many households in our county are struggling with the increases in the cost of living, and we have seen this manifesting itself in the continued significant increased demand for welfare assistance payments, for household support payments and for test and trace payments across the quarter. The test and trace payments came to an end in March as COVID restrictions ended and the government withdrew the scheme. Occupancy rates in our strategic employment sites are now at 95.5% and Net Park remains fully occupied, having achieved that for the first time in Q3. Durham is very much open for business and attracting inward investment is very much a priority for this administration. The report shines a light on some of the work of the Business Durham team in terms of the County Durham Growth Fund, highlighting that 7.7 million of the 8.9 million fund has now been allocated, generating 239 jobs. In terms of Finance Durham, up to the 31st of March, investments totalling £10 million have been made in 21 companies. Business support through the Targeted Business Improvement Scheme has enabled a further 108 jobs to be created, whilst 48 jobs have been created through the Towns and Villages programme. Although 571 businesses were engaged during Q4, this is 296 fewer than the same period last year. This is mirrored in Employability Durham, where there are fewer people requiring support due to the healthy labour market that we have at this time. Across the last quarter, the hospitality and leisure industry, so badly affected by the pandemic, continued to show signs of growth, with increased enquiries and bookings, no doubt helped by the lifting of the full COVID restrictions. That said, the cost of living squeeze is a concern in terms of disposable income, and the impact on the leisure industry across the coming months is something we will need to keep a close eye on. The report highlights some of the challenges facing our education services, where the pandemic has resulted in an increase in children being educated at home. This currently stands at 637 across the county. Along with tackling obesity and other health challenges, there are system-wide challenges and can only be addressed by a multi-agency and partnership response, focusing our efforts onto improving well-being and tackling the wider detriments of public health. This, along with what was said in the previous report, emphasises how important partnership working is across the county. On the other hand, there has been a sustained reduction in admissions to adult residential care, where admission rates are around a third lower than pre-pandemic levels, as people choose to live more independently and remain in their homes. The report Paul mentioned sets out details of the Shared Prosperity Fund grant allocations that were announced recently, where County Durham has been awarded around £34 million of funding, roughly half of the previous EU funding levels and substantially less than what we would have received had the UK remained within the EU, given the enhanced status level we were due to be awarded. In response to the Ukraine crisis, the Council established a multi-agency humanitarian support working group during March, and under the Homes for Ukraine sponsorship team, there were over 130 residents who put themselves forward to sponsor a family. Last quarter, I welcomed the reintroduction of the annual performance development reviews, starting with our leaders, which were all completed by the end of quarter 3. To the end of quarter 4, 83% of managers' PDRs were completed, which is broadly in line with the pre-pandemic levels of performance. From April, the process started with core employees, and I look forward to receiving the updates on the progress with this in future reports. As has already been said, this is a very comprehensive report, and in closing, can I once again thank all of our staff who continue to go above and beyond to ensure we continue to deliver our services well. With that, I move the report recommendations, which is for Cabinet to note the performance in the quarter and to the year end. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the report? Okay. Can we agree? Note the report. Okay, that's the report noted. If we move on to item 8, which is cyber security strategy, if I can ask Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report presents Cabinet with an overview of the Council's cyber security arrangements and sets out for consideration a new cyber security strategy which has been prepared in response to the increase in threats from cyber criminals and several successful and high-profile cyber attacks on other public and private sector organisations. The strategy aligns with the Government's recently published National Cyber Security Strategy, the central aim of which is for critical functions to be significantly hardened to cyber attack by 2025, with all government organisations across the whole of the public sector being resilient to known vulnerabilities and attack methods by no later than 2030. Paragraphs 25 to 35 of the report explain why it's important that the Council has a developed cyber security strategy, and from paragraph 36 onwards the report sets out what our future approach will be to mitigate the multiple cyber threats that the Council faces and to safeguard our interests in the cyberspace, including collective and individual actions to strengthen our position in this area. The key pillars of our approach as set out in the report are to have a council-wide risk management framework to help build a risk-aware culture within the Council for all of our staff and members so that they fully understand how to identify and manage risks. In terms of cyber awareness training, the strategy sets out a range of measures to help mitigate insider threats, understand supply chain risks, and to ensure all staff understand the issues and their responsibilities. And finally, a range of technical interventions and controls to ensure we conform with appropriate frameworks and ensure the Council is able to have all of its information security risks prioritised and resourced. From paragraph 39 onwards, the report provides an overview of the actions proposed to implement the strategy, which seek to strike a balance between embracing digital opportunities, including making information more widely available and accessible, whilst also ensuring that the right level of protections are in place in terms of our vulnerabilities. It's intended that the strategy, as well as signalling a clear direction of travel, will demonstrate the Council's firm commitment to cyber security. The actions contained within it will ensure we establish a trusted digital environment for our organisation, for our residents and for our stakeholders. Cyber attacks will, of course, continue to evolve, which is why we need to continue to work at pace to stay ahead of all the threats and keep the strategy under constant review. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 15, which are for Cabinet to note the contents of the report and agree the adoption of the strategy attached to Appendix 2.
Thanks, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Susan MacDonald, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Digital, Customer Service and Procurement, to speak to the report, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank Paul and his team for preparing the cyber security strategy we have in front of us today. This Council can't operate without the ICT infrastructure and underlying systems, along with the vast amount of data that we hold, because it underpins everything we do. Like many public and private sector organisations, we face thousands and thousands of cyber attacks on a daily basis. Cyber criminals constantly evolve their approach to find new ways to exploit any vulnerabilities in our systems and within our processes, and they do this to get access to the data we hold because of the significant value it has if it were to find its way onto the dark web, or to lock down our systems, disrupt our business, or to hold us to ransom. The impact of a successful cyber attack can be devastating on the organisation, but also on the individuals whose data we hold. And it can take many years for an organisation to recover from a successful attack. Cybersecurity isn't just about which software version we use or the firewalls and antivirus software we have in place. It's just as much about the users of our systems, which is each and every one of us in here today. In line with the Government's National Cybersecurity Strategy, our new strategy will ensure we are all risk aware, ensuring staff and members understand how to identify and manage risks to our cybersecurity. It includes cyber awareness training to help mitigate the threats we face and ensure all staff and members fully appreciate the issues and, more importantly, their personal responsibilities. And it will ensure that our controls are up to date, that we identify, mitigate and protect against information security risks in a prioritised and resourceful fashion. The strategy and actions contained within it demonstrates our very clear commitment to cybersecurity. It helps us manage the inherent tension between making our systems more open and accessible while we look to digitise more and more services, but at the same time protect them from attack and exploitation. With that, Chair, I move the report and the recommendations set out within paragraph 15. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Can I invite Councillor Richard Bell, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance, to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can I also thank Paul and his team for the work undertaken to develop this important strategy? The risk from cyber criminals who would seek to access our data and systems is a very real one. This could be either to extort money from us, to gain information from us, or just to disrupt our systems. That's ransomware, phishing and malware in the jargon. This is a very real risk, and it's something which we must take all efforts to combat, as the consequences from a successful cyber attack can be devastating for an organisation reputationally, operationally and financially. I would strongly recommend that all members and members of staff read this strategy, as we have a responsibility to comply with the standards that it contains. And furthermore, it's quite an interesting read. For instance, I've learnt that hacktivists, which is a new term to me, hacktivists can take over public websites or social media accounts to raise the profile of a particular cause, which is probably easier than gluing yourself to a motorway. We must try constantly to stay ahead of the curve and ensure members and officers remain aware of these threats and remain vigilant at all times. This strategy, aligned as it is to the Government's National Cybersecurity Strategy, provides a framework for our collective efforts to build on and further strengthen our cybersecurity arrangements. It represents an important update, it is good practice, and I fully endorse the adoption of it today. And with that, Chair, I second the report and the recommendations set out at paragraph 15.
Thanks, Richard. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to the report, please? Okay, can we agree the report and its recommendations? Agreed. Okay, I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 9 is any other business. I haven't been notified of any other business for this morning, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for taking part, and to those members of the public and media who have watched online. That concludes the business for this morning's meeting.